I'm Ryo, and this is Watch This Instead for March 25th, 2011. Earlier this week, Mike and I got to see Sucker Punch, which has some incredible cinematography, some really cool production design, one or two jaw-droppingly cool action sequences, and I even thought the music was kind of neat. But if you take all that away, what you're left with is one giant mess of an unwatchable movie that would probably make a pretty good video game, actually. Sucker Punch tells the weirdly convoluted story of Baby Doll, a young girl who's victimized by her sleazy, evil stepfather, who commits her to an insane asylum even though she's not actually crazy and only accidentally killed her sister, I think. In 5 days, she's slated for an unauthorized lobotomy. So in the meantime, she concocts a plan to escape with her new friends that involves getting her hands on a knife, a lighter, a key, and a map. The convoluted part comes in when the movie introduces a secondary level of reality in Baby Doll's head, where she for some reason imagines that instead of being in an asylum, she's in a brothel/burlesque house where the girls, or inmates, are forced against their will to dance for a bunch of sleazy rich dudes, or doctors, people that run the asylum. Then it gets even more weird and unnecessarily confusing when you realize that while Baby Doll is dancing, she's imagining a third level of reality where she's some sort of superhero fetishized schoolgirl with a gun and a samurai sword that is able to mow down entire armies of zombie Nazis and kill dragons and jump really, really high in the air and land exactly the same way every single time, like Iron Man. So not only is this entire film one crazy excuse for a filmmaker like Zack Snyder to throw everything he's got at it in terms of satisfying his inner geek, but it's also a film that tries way, way, way too hard, considering that setup, to say something and be meaningful, when in truth, it has nothing to say and is meaningless. Nothing that happens in this film has any weight to it whatsoever. 95% of the film takes place in someone's head. And any connection you try and make in terms of supposing that everything is a metaphor for something else will just lead you to a dead end. A knife in one reality is a time bomb in another. And dancing in one reality equals shooting a machine gun in another. But what does dancing mean in the asylum reality? Is it having a really good session with your psychiatrist? Is it art therapy? Oh, am I trying too hard to find meaning in what's supposed to be a fun, campy adventure? Well, answer me this. Why would this young, damaged girl, who by every indication was molested by her stepfather, escape to this imagined reality where she's a prostitute/stripper held against her will? How is that any better? And why does her dancing, which we never actually get to see despite every character in the film talking about how captivating it is, why does it play out in her head as this hyper, fantastic, ultra-violent power fantasy? Why is the story structured in this way? Why not just make a crazy adventure movie about girls in short skirts shooting machine guns and slicing people in half with their swords? That would have been a cajillion times better. And way more fun. Why complicate things by clumsily trying to say something about female empowerment, but instead setting back female characters in film 20 or 30 years? Why do we get to see so much of Emily Browning's crotch? Overall, the spectacular visuals, and they are spectacular, are not distracting enough from the problems with the story and the terrible acting on everyone's part, except for Jenna Malone. She's actually pretty good. So steer clear of Sucker Punch this weekend, and instead you could watch a handful of films made by better filmmakers who have also tried to cram everything they could into one movie. I could point to a handful of Terry Gilliam's films like Time Bandits or Baron von Munchausen or Brazil. But a more recent and way more fun example would be my favorite pick from last year's Midnight Madness, The Butcher, the Chef, and the Swordsman. This is a film that has come as close as I've ever seen to approaching live-action Looney Tunes style slapstick comedy. It's unbelievably good. It takes place in ancient China and is worth watching just for the brothel set hip-hop number about how smelly a guy is. Probably not easy to track down as it was just recently released in theaters in a very limited run. But if you can track it down, I would suggest watching that instead of Sucker Punch. Failing that, any of Terry Gilliam's movies. Failing that, just don't go watch Sucker Punch.